Joining me now is Caleb Maupin, political analyst and journalist and founder of the Centre for Political Innovation. Welcome to the show, Caleb.
Sure, glad to be here.
So let's start with, you were in Washington, D.C. at the weekend, participating in the March on Washington. Tell me what happened and what went on.
This was the 17th annual Black is Back March. And this is put on by the People's Democratic Uhuru movement. And they started doing it when Barack Obama was first elected president to make a political statement. They kind of rejected the notion that racism was over and that Barack Obama and the Democratic Party were working in the interest of Black Americans. But it's been really important to be there because this organization, the Uhuru movement, was charged by the Biden administration, indicted, had their homes raided by the FBI, and dragged into federal court on the charge of being Russian agents. They went to trial in federal court, and they were acquitted on the main charge of being foreign agents, but convicted of conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government. And they're fighting that conviction in federal court. And this is a group of Black socialist activists. They've been around since the 1960s. Their organization was founded in the mid-'70s. And the Biden administration accused them of being agents of Russia. And it was a very chilling and extreme case where they basically argued that their speech about Russia constituted acting as a foreign agent, was a violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And so they fought it, and they got a lot of support from people like Tucker Carlson and Scott Ritter and others. And they had their annual demonstration in Washington, D.C., and I was proud to be there representing the Center for Political Innovation. They marched from Malcolm X Park all the way to the White House, and they continue fighting their conspiracy conviction in federal court, and they have got a lot going on. They're launching a national campaign to overturn the Foreign Agents Registration Act. They're also talking about some of the specific needs of the Black community. They continue their amazing community work in the Black community, running farmers markets, doula classes for pregnant mothers, and other programs that really benefit the Black community. So, yeah, it was really great to be there and to take a stand for civil liberties.
And the lawsuit that's still, the case that's still pending, what is now left to be decided by the court? Right,
so they received a very odd verdict. The jurors looked over the evidence. All the testimony at the trial was from FBI agents, as well as academics hired by the FBI to act as expert witnesses. They had some expert witnesses they were going to bring, but the judge denied them. So all the testimony came from FBI agents and from FBI paid academics. And the jury looked over the evidence, and they said, no, they're not acting as foreign agents. However, they convicted them of conspiracy to defraud the American government because they conspired to not register as foreign agents. Now, if what they were doing was not acting as a foreign agent, conspiring not to register would therefore not be a crime. And conspiracy laws also present a very bizarre constitutional question, right? No crime actually has to be committed, right? In order to commit a conspiracy, you just have to get together with somebody and talk about maybe committing a crime. Conspiracy laws have raised a lot of questions. In this case, it's particularly egregious because of the fact that that what they did was not considered to be a crime. In theory, one could conspire to commit a murder and not actually carry it out. But if what they conspired to do is not a crime, conspiring to do it is therefore not a crime as well. And they would like that to be overturned. And that the Biden administration was using the Foreign Agents Registration Act to target Trump supporters. Now, when Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, came in, she issued a memorandum saying that the Foreign Agents Registration Act would no longer be used in this way. It would only target cases of clear espionage carried out by non-citizens. However, since then, the Trump administration has published kind of a legal document dealing with Antifa. In the aftermath of the killing of Charlie Kirk, they published a document, and in that document, they actually invoked the Foreign Agents Registration Act as a possible route to go after Antifa. So where the Trump administration stands is not clear. That's why they're taking this to federal court. They want their conviction completely overturned and nullified. And it fits in with a wider situation. So Tulsi Gabbard, who is the Director of National Intelligence, as the Director of National Intelligence, she's gone to the FBI. She's their boss. She's above them. and said, I'm going to take over the counterintelligence wing of the FBI. I will be running the counterintelligence operations. And the FBI is screaming in anger, no. We want to run the counterintelligence wing. And there's, all these reports in mainstream media. Tulsi Gabbard, she's friendly to Russia. She can't be trusted to run counterintelligence. So this is a situation where Trump was elected president. And as the head of the executive branch, he picked Tulsi Gabbard to be his director of national intelligence. And she says, okay, I've been appointed by the president. I'm going to run the intelligence division. And the FBI is saying, no, you can't do this. Well, what's going on here? Well, it's clear that this is a political difference. This isn't just a matter of who gets the job. It's a political difference. And the way the FBI was running the counterintelligence division was in a very politicizing way. I mean, what was the program they used to target Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Black Panthers and so many activists? It was the counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO. And that the FBI for years has considered activism, peace activism, and other activism to be intelligence. And under that ground, they have violated the freedom of speech and the freedom of association of millions of Americans. The Socialist Workers' Party sued the FBI in 1976, and all kinds of things were revealed. They won millions of dollars in settlement from the FBI for all of the egregious behavior the FBI did against the Socialist Workers' Party in the name of counterintelligence. So that wing of the FBI, the counterintelligence wing, is a wing that really needs to be controlled if we're going to have our freedom. And Tulsi Gabbard wants to take control of it, and the FBI is angry about it. And there are people in Congress that are angry about it. They don't want Tulsi Gabbard to assert control over the FBI's counterintelligence wing. This is very, very important. Tulsi Gabbard was just in Bahrain, and while she was there, she gave a speech very eloquently making clear that she's opposed to regime change wars. There are divisions within the Trump administration about a lot of things. And Tulsi Gabbard's faction seems to be kind of fighting an uphill battle against the Marco Rubios and the standard neoconservatives. We see the indictment of John Bolton and the indictment of various figures, John Brennan and others. And, there is kind of a push and pull going on.
So switching gears a little bit, but of course it does flow straight into it. President Trump told 60 Minutes he doubts the U.S. will go to war with Venezuela, yet the military has deployed the largest force to the Caribbean in decades, including warships, Marines, drones, B-52 bomber demonstrations. How do you interpret this contradiction?
Well, here's the thing. I have my hopes for what will happen, but I think it's quite telling that the Miami Herald came out and said the USA is about to strike Venezuela, and then Trump on Air Force One said, no, we're not, and then Marco Rubio, who's his whole career and everything, he's a Miami Cuban, he's obsessed with all of this South America, fighting the leftists in South America. He then came out and said that was fake news and condemned the Miami Herald for saying it. That is my hope, that there will be a de-escalation against Venezuela. This will de-escalate like it did in Trump's first term. Let's be real, though, and Rand Paul, the congressman from Kentucky, has just broken down how this whole drug thing with Venezuela is a complete and utter hoax. First of all, the U.S. government, the United States, we do not have the death penalty for using drugs, right? So the idea that you can sink these ships in the Caribbean because they say the people on board have drugs on them, that's not legal, right? Second of all, even if we did have the death penalty for using drugs, there's this thing called dual process, that before someone got sentenced to death, they would have to be arrested and tried for doing that. Third, the department, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, has many times said that Venezuela is inconsequential in the international drug trade. They really don't matter. Colombia, Ecuador, those kind of countries, yeah, you've got an issue there. Venezuela, there's probably some drugs there somewhere, but the idea that they're run by a cartel, all these things we're hearing, they don't match what is being said by the U.S. government's own sources. Fourth, if those ships did contain drugs, why did they not seize them as evidence to make the case? Fourth, right? All these people who've been killed on these boats, there's over 60 people, I believe, at this point.
Yes,
they will not release a single one of their names, right? Well, if these people were drug dealers, give us their names. They will not release a single name. Fifth, there was a ship they sunk, and there were 2 survivors. And so what did they do? Did they arrest those survivors and take them to go to federal court for bringing drugs to the United States? No. They sent them back to Venezuela, and they won't give us their names. This is a hoax. the idea that they're sinking these ships off the coast of Venezuela because of drugs is a complete hoax, and everyone can see that. They won't name anybody. They don't have any evidence. This is a complete hoax. It is a hoax, and it's being carried out by Marco Rubio, who's got family connections to the international drug trade, and it's being carried out by the so-called Miami Mafia and the neoconservative wing of the Republican Party of the Trump administration. Now, I have said from the beginning that there are three possibilities, one being that this de-escalates, two being that there are airstrikes on Venezuela, and the third being an actual invasion. My hope is that Donald Trump will do what he did when it came to Yemen, right? You'll remember that Trump bombed Yemen, and then there were some, deaths of U.S. sailors in Yemen, and the U.S. aircraft carriers were moving into Yemen. And then Trump, all of a sudden, J.D. Vance was going out there and saying, oh, this is not going to be a new Vietnam. And then Trump said, well, we reached an agreement with the Houthis that they will not attack any U.S. ships. And then the USA pulled military forces out of the Red Sea. And they then said to Trump, reporters said to Trump, well, what about the Houthis continue to attack Israel? He said, I'm fine with that. And that the whole reason the USA struck Yemen was to protect Israeli ships. And they made a deal with the Houthis, don't attack any more American ships, we don't care, and they moved on. And it occurred to me that, you watch that situation and the way J.D. Vance was out there saying this is not a new Vietnam. Basically, Trump doesn't want the PR of being a war president, of people coming home in body bags. And so when it became a matter of U.S. soldiers getting killed, not just a matter of dropping bombs on Yemen, Trump didn't want to do that. And that's my hope that he will do the same with Venezuela, right? He doesn't seem to mind having Marco Rubio, blow up some ships and taking people's lives or whatever, but when it becomes an issue where, U.S. troops would come home in body bags, et cetera, I don't think Trump wants to do that. Now, I will say this, this must be pointed out. Venezuela is a very mountainous country. They've got, 2 million volunteers in the Bolivarian militias. They have their regular army that's trained in Cuba. And if Trump were to actually invade Venezuela, he would lose all credibility with his base because all the things that Trump's base are the most upset about would get worse. You think there's a problem with drugs in Venezuela now, overthrow the elected and the stable government and replace it with chaos and various armed gangs in the country, you're going to have a way bigger drug problem. You think there's an issue with migrants from Venezuela coming to the United States now, you cast the country into utter chaos, destroy the central government, bomb the place, and you're going to have way more problems. And that everything that Trump's supporters are concerned about, drugs, gangs, migrants, all of that would get worse if you overthrew the Venezuelan government. On top of that, you would have to send U.S. troops into the country. And if you did that, a lot of those U.S. troops wouldn't come home. And I just don't think the Trump administration is that stupid. Trump's approval ratings are very, very low right now. And all he's got is that MAGA base, so these kind of very fanatical young people. And if you see the clips of J.D. Vance just getting raked over the coals for how Trump is beholden to Israel by these young people, these kind of young Charlie Kirk fans just kind of raking J.D. Vance over. I mean, if Trump were to actually invade Venezuela, even a lot of his most staunch supporters would turn their backs on him, and he would just be done as a president. I mean, they might as well impeach him at that point. And, so I think Trump is not stupid enough to actually invade Venezuela. But who knows? I mean, the situation is very, very strange, but I think that Trump is smart enough to say, okay, I gave Marco Rubio and I gave the Miami Cubans what they wanted. We put on a show. We sunk a bunch of boats. Now let's move on. And that's what I hope he will do. I hope he will do that. And I have a feeling Tulsi Gabbard is probably urging him to do that behind closed doors.
Going back to the 60 Minutes interview, President Trump told CBS he wants the U.S. to resume nuclear weapons testing like other countries, even though his Energy Secretary says no nuclear explosions are planned. What message does this mixed signaling send to Russia, China, and U.S. allies?
There's a couple things there. I mean, the first thing is that, that's a military-industrial complex. I mean, making nuclear weapons, testing nuclear weapons, that's a lot of money. Right, and a lot of those arms manufacturers are really excited to get the contract to go and test an atomic bomb, and that's one thing. So that's kind of a virtue signal, and that's got economic benefit, and there's people who like hearing that. The second thing is that that is a saber rattling threat. Like we have the world's biggest nuclear arsenal, and we're going to continue expanding it. The third thing, though, is that nuclear weapons, the manufacturing and testing and proliferation of nuclear weapons in America is tied in with nuclear power. And it's like the same corporations that run it. And big oil doesn't like nuclear power. Big oil has been the main financial backer of the environmental movements against nuclear power. And big oil tends to be tied in with Britain. And so, there's some internal stuff going on there, right? You have the big four super major oil companies, ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, and Chevron, and that's what you can call like the Anglo-American establishment, the old money in the United States. That's with the intelligence agencies that tend to lean liberal, the kind of the George Soros crowd, the World Economic Forum. They don't like Trump, and they're the people doing the No Kings protests, et cetera. And so Trump is leaning in. He's, throwing a bone to the military-industrial complex. He's kind of, saying, I want to do nuclear power, nuclear weapons. Anything nuclear tends to be kind of a diss to that Eastern establishment. It's not what Wall Street and London want to hear. They want oil and they want no nukes anywhere.
Right. And if I could get your take on more local domestic issues, the SNAP benefits, what you're hearing about the repercussions of this, what it means, how tragic is it? It's one of the crucial social safety nets. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, let's be real that the courts have ordered Trump to turn the SNAP benefits back on. Now, from what I understand, he hasn't done it yet, but the courts have said he can't legally cut off. So we'll see what happens. Trump, when he was interviewed about it, was very defensive. I am seeing a lot of misinformation, going around. For example, it's a large number of people, 42 million people who receive SNAP, supplemental nutrition assistance benefits. Now, most of those people that are adults are working. The overwhelming majority of them are working. Many of those 42 million people are children. I continue to see, however, in conservative circles, this notion that all the people that get SNAP benefits are too lazy to get a job. Well, no, we have a problem that people do have jobs, and those jobs don't pay them enough that they can eat. And employers have figured out that, food stamps is a way to supplement their employees' food so that they don't have to pay their employees a decent wage. Another claim that I'm seeing, and I see this going around, is, the price of food is so high. I've seen this going around. The price of food is so high because all these people get it for free. If we just got rid of food stamps, then the price of food would go down. False. In fact, look this up. People should look this up and Google it if you don't believe me. It sounds fantastical, but it's true. In Springfield, Missouri, there is a cave that has billions and billions of dollars worth of cheese buried in it. And every year, the U.S. government buys millions of dollars worth of cheese and buries it in a cave in Springfield, Missouri. Why? That's to keep the price of dairy high enough that farms don't go under. And that we actually produce so much food in America. Our food market is glutted. And a lot of what the U.S. Department of Agriculture does is buy food from farmers and destroy it just to keep the prices high. We have a very, very irrational, the U.S. agribusiness, is feeding big chunks of the world. NAFTA, put a lot of domestic farming sectors out of business. The USA is exporting food to countries that really shouldn't have to import their food. They should be able to grow their own food, but we put them out of business. And you talk about these corporations like Monsanto and such, and there's no reason one of the main groups that supports the SNAP program is Kraft, the food manufacturer, because they sell a lot of food that they wouldn't sell otherwise. The idea that the SNAP program is the reason the price of food is high, the idea that all these people that are getting food benefits are all just too lazy to get a job, none of this matches reality. This is neoliberal economics. This is bad economics. The free market extremism has kind of been pushed in this country so hard. It doesn't match reality. U.S. agriculture and U.S. food production is very, very irrational, no question about it. But the idea that we should, if we got rid of food for these people, that would somehow improve things, that is not the case.
Switching gears again, if we could just go to Iran, there was a couple of developments there. That Iran's Khomeini said Iran would not negotiate unless the U.S. completely abandoned support for the Israelis. How realistic is this demand, and what does it signal about Iran's current strategic posture?
Well, I think the thing is Iran has made so many concessions. They gave up almost all their peaceful nuclear energy program. And as a result, Qasem Soleimani was killed. And more recently, they were negotiating with the USA around the nuclear issue. And while they were negotiating, Israel did a sneak attack and killed some of their top generals. I mean, Iran can't negotiate. I mean, every time they negotiate, they get stabbed in the back. And, opposing Israel is one of the founding principles of the Islamic Republic. Khomeini, the original supreme leader, he created the Day of Al-Quds, the final Friday of Ramadan, as an international day to oppose Israel. When they were waging war with Iraq, they had the slogan, the road to Al-Quds, or the road to Jerusalem, is through Karbala. Meaning that basically, while they were fighting Iraq, the ultimate goal was to seize Jerusalem from the Israelis. I mean, Iran is committed to standing with the Palestinians, and right now it's Iran's allies, whether it's the Houthis in Yemen or Hezbollah in Lebanon, or Iran itself. They are the main people opposing Israel in the region. That's why Israel would like them destroyed. That's why the USA, continues to play up the idea that they're a threat. They've negotiated and negotiated and negotiated, and every time they negotiate, it's just a trick to make things worse for them. So now they're digging in, they're taking a hard stance. Now, there's a lot of internal turmoil in Iranian politics. There is a wing of the Iranian government that I would call westernized, that kind of mouths the principles of the Islamic Republic, but would really like Iran to move in a Western direction. And the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, he represents the largest section of the economy, which is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. There's also this kind of, extra military organization that is above the elected government. This kind of, military organization that is based in Iran, but actually, operates all throughout the region, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, and they control the bulk of Iran's economy, and they have a military force that is greater than the Iranian military, and they represent the forces that are committed to Iran's founding principles, et cetera. So there's a clash between the kind of civilian government that has to kind of take the lead from the supreme leader, but a lot of the people in it, are very westernized and very much in love with the Western system, and the military and bulk of Iran's economy that is committed to the Islamic Republic's principles. And I think that contradiction is causing some strife within Iran, and that we may see a situation where the Islamic Revolutionary Guards and the supreme leader have to kind of assert themselves much more dramatically over the rest of Iran, because, the current president of Iran is a moderate, is from the moderate camp, and there's a lot of wealthy people in Iran that are not on board with Iran's revolutionary goals. And their hope was that they could negotiate with the United States, the USA would bring in foreign investment, and they could gradually kind of nudge Iran away from its revolutionary foundation. But it's been made clear by Israel and the United States they're not going to allow that to happen. There won't be a negotiation situation. And I think that the hope of the Obama administration was for some kind of Iranian Gorbachev, some kind of leader to come in, a moderate who would gradually kind of dismantle the Islamic Republic. But Obama and Netanyahu and now Trump, they're just not going to let that happen. So as a result, I see that Iran's hardliner faction, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, are probably going to have more dominance in Iran and assert more control over Iran, and Iran will become much more solidly aligned with Russia and China and much less friendly to the United States. I think that's just kind of the inevitable conclusion. It couldn't be any other way, even though a lot of people would like it to be the other way. It's just not going to go that way.
Caleb Maupin, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Your insights are always valuable, and I'm grateful that you keep making yourself available to come on the show. Thank you.
Sure. Always a pleasure. Talk to you soon.